So I want to now continue the theme now through the kind of sort of front sort of line down the centre of the body, and I guess I want to just draw the picture of the client that is, you know, coming to our clinics, who are, you know, stressed. You know, we've got that rounded shoulder we know about. We've got that kind of slight kind of curving in of their lower back as well. They're stressed. They're, you know, that emotional aspect that links our muscles together and fascia that we've been sort of teasing out and thinking about. Really important for us to sort of listen to our clients and get that story and give them opportunity to sort of let us kind of hear them and be heard. I think that's a really important thing around listening to people here. Today, we're going to have a bit of fun together and play around with this, because one of the things that is so important is that, you know, in terms of our being a healthy posture, our pelvic floor and our diaphragm need to be kind of in parallel and over the top of each other. So if we have a situation where somebody's got a very kind of anteriorly rotated lower pelvic floor and lordosis, that lower back pain, or they're just tilting or moving forward by the way that they're holding their upper body, then if these two areas get out of balance, then we know that puts a lot of stress on this sort of pelvic floor, core stability, all that kind of adjectives that we use to think about this part of the body. So a few areas that I think we're going to dive into a little bit more. Now, T, you do more work with this than I do around the iliopsoas, and that real strong hip flexor, our main dominant hip flexor. Maybe you want to say a little bit about that kind of, what's it presenting your client in your clinic?
I think we're just seeing so much more of it, particularly at the moment. You know, it's just, these last few years have been incredibly stressful. It's an incredibly emotional muscle. Psoas, that muscle of the soul, the one we hold on to, that fight or flight muscle.
Simple, isn't it? I like that muscle of the soul.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? So you've got that kind of holding of our emotional states.
Absolutely.
Is that?
Yeah.
So this is where yoga tucks in nicely, doesn't it? That whole opening up and bringing through. In our soft tissue work, then learning some thinking around how we release this. So let's just go a little bit into where those muscles are. It joins onto the spine, comes across and joins onto the top of the femur, and that's its path through the kind of canal here. The iliac crest, those nice bony bits here and around here, coming in around here. Now, I'm not today going to spend a lot of time kind of exploring this. Just gives, I think, whetting your appetite to think about, how do I start to release these muscles? Now, there's all those lovely bits of work that we do around the abdominal cavity generally, and that, you know, if you're into that chakra work and energy work, then you might be just doing some really nice energetics here to sort of calm that front line of our fascia and our chakras, so people feel open rather than closed. So just enough, I think, probably just to say that the iliacus or psoas together comes inside the pelvic sort of pelvic wall there, and deep inside the abdominal wall here, and you need some training and guidance to think about releasing that. But really, really important to think about how am I going to open up these hip flexors. And you said, you know, that muscle of the soul is a nice one, isn't it? And
people are frightened of working with this area because they're just not familiar with it, but it's so important if we're going to look at that kind of, that, you know, you hold on to so much stress there, and by releasing this can make a massive difference.
Yeah, it links with sort of, you know, gut pain, isn't it?
Oh,
my gut instinct, my digestion, all that stress related, you know, my bowel, all that stuff gets kind of
it gets lost, I think.
So linking physical ailments with fascia and emotional states is what we do, isn't it? This is what we do. Okay, I want to now move on to the abdominal sheath at the front here, our sit back, and bring that up a little bit down onto the pelvic floor, sort of pelvic pubis here, and also just underneath the ribs. So if I lift the toe up slightly, you can see the edge of the ribs here. And I think working on the diaphragm here can be really nice.
My six-pack's hiding, by the way.
Sorry?
My six-pack's hiding, by the way.
Is it hiding?
Yes.
I wonder where. So working through, supported thumbs work well here. Lots of communication with the client. Just easing, so you're kind of just coming up underneath that kind of rib cage. The breathing is so important, isn't it? We've got to get people to open, breathe through our lower here rather than it all being here. It's a big journey here. So both sides coming through. I think normally I might come around the other edge, other side of the couch and work through here. Whatever feels, I think, appropriate. Remember, if you're going to work on the top, you've got to work on the bottom of that sheath, as it runs down the front. Now, obviously down on the pubic wall here, you're kind of near the genitals, so I sometimes get the client to just show me that wall, and sometimes I can actually hold their hands and just let them do the kind of palpation, if you like, as I guide their fingers along the width either side of the pelvic wall there, and just work your way backwards and forwards either hand. And you'll find maybe some of it could be really quite tender.
Yeah.
And so you're working at the top, you're working at the bottom. Nice technique to work in the middle is, and you would have you've developed all those lovely skills of working on the breathing here. I quite like this, where I bring my hands together, nice open fists, and hardly any wax, which I think is a theme that maybe you've got to kind of think about. So you almost want that Chinese burn, but not quite. Gathering the tissue, bringing it up, and then taking it back to the centre line. Really quite a nice field, isn't it?
Yeah. So
you're lifting that abdominal and you're stretching it and you're engaging it and you're asking for it to really start to engage and be part of the join the party, I think, this business.
But really interestingly, trigger points and tightness within your rectus abdominis refers pain into the back. So again, it's that kind of linking and that thinking, that real kind of lower back pain, that kind of pain underneath the scapulars, all again linked on the front.
We must do a section, we must do some videos around the back, I think, in that relation. The posterior aspect of the diaphragm attaches to the vertebra. So you've got this kind of around T12L, T12L1 is a very important junction we must come back to and work on, because there's some really interesting stuff here. Okay, now let's pause there and move on to the next video.